Good morning and welcome to Kim's Cozy Corner. We're going to talk about potatoes and how the season went for this year. Which potatoes were the good ones and which ones are we going to put on the shelf or either discontinue altogether in the upcoming seasons? As I stated in an earlier video, I want to give you a summary of how our potato season went this year. So we harvested, and I got my little book here with all my notes in it, but for potatoes this year, we harvested 122 pounds of potatoes this year. And there were many different varieties of potatoes that we grew. And I would like to talk through some of those varieties, how they did, and whether or not we're going to grow them again. Now, I do use potatoes from the previous season. Now, I don't know how many pounds of potatoes I used from previous season, but anytime I had a chance to turn a previous season potato into a seed potato for another batch, I did that. And I grouped all of those many different types of potatoes together, and I called those potatoes mixed or last season potatoes. So I ordered a total of 32 pounds of seed potatoes. All of my seed potatoes came from the Maine potato lady, and Maine like the state. So I ordered all my potatoes from them. I had two different orders last year, except for one. I picked up one seed potato from an Amish farmer's market in Pennsylvania because I just happened to be in the area. So outside of 2 pounds, 30 pounds of potatoes came from the Maine potato lady. And I ordered a variety of things. Let me back up for just one moment here. So I ordered 30 potatoes, 30 pounds of potatoes, let's say 32 pounds of potatoes, and I got 122 pounds of potatoes out of those 32 pounds. And the harvest is still coming because I'm growing potatoes indoors. So I don't know if that's a good ratio or not, but that's what we have. So now let's talk about some of those different potatoes. I ordered two types of fingerling potatoes, and here are the two types that I ordered. It was a total of 5 pounds of fingerling potatoes that I ordered, which was a lot. That's why I ended up with so many fingerling potatoes. And so I was trying to figure out, why do I have so many fingerling potatoes? It's because I ordered a ton of fingerling potatoes. I don't know what I was thinking. But 5 pounds of fingerling potatoes is like 1,000 potatoes when you think about the size and how many it takes to get to 5 pounds. So that was a mistake. We won't do that again. And I only grew about 8 3/4 of a pound. And the fingerling potatoes were, of course, very delicious. And if I have any that go to seeds, I will plant more from the current stock. But I don't plan on buying fingerling potatoes in this upcoming season. The banana fingerling potatoes were just so small. They were tiny and they're everywhere. And they're still everywhere in my garden. I know I didn't get all of them. The Larate fingerling potatoes were a really nice sized fingerling potato. I mean, it's big enough to work with. And so if I grew fingerling potatoes, the Larate fingerling potatoes would be the one of choice, but I don't plan on buying fingerling potatoes in this upcoming season. The next one that I want to talk about is my Yukon Gold and my Yukon Gem. Now, of the two, I think the Yukon Gold did better. It has a lighter buff color skin where the gem is a little deeper color. Here are the two pictures of those two. Between the two of them, I purchased 5 pounds of seed potatoes. And these seed potatoes are organic seed potatoes. You can get conventional or organic. I bought the organic ones. So I bought 5 pounds and I grew between the two of them 15 1/2 pounds of potatoes. So of those, though, most of those were the Yukon Gold. I'll just be honest with you. I know they were Yukon Gold. They got bigger. They had that fair buff skin, so it didn't have the deeper color skin. So Yukon Gold is by far a keeper in my garden. I've grown it for several years and I will continue to grow it. Moving on to my absolutely favorite potato, which is the purple Viking. That is by far my favorite potato. Last year, I didn't get as many as I wanted. This year, I did better. But I only purchased 2.5 pounds of purple Viking potatoes, only 2.5 pounds. And at 2.5 pounds, I still was able to grow 10 pounds of potatoes out of 2.5 pounds. So I was very happy with that. And I was able to turn some of those potatoes into more seedling. So the purple Viking harvest is continuing to come. So even though I only bought 2.5, it is amazing. I love the skin color with the purples and the pinks all splotched together and that super white flesh. The purple Viking also holds up much better in the canning process because it holds its shape better when I'm trying to can the purple Viking. My absolute favorite potato, purple Viking. I also pulled off the shelf. I grew it several years ago and I stopped growing it because it didn't do very well. And at that time, I was growing only in pots. Well, this season, I grew Kennebec for the first time in several years. I only purchased 2.5 pounds of Kennebec seed potatoes, and I was able to grow 8.5 pounds from 2.5 pounds of Kennebec. The Kennebec potatoes are larger potatoes. They're good for everything. It's an all-around good potato, and it has good storage as well. So although I didn't get as many potatoes, they were nice sized potatoes that I could do a lot with. And so I use them pretty quickly after I harvest them because I prefer to take 3 big potatoes and cut those up than having to deal with teeny little bitty potatoes. So I went through the harvest kind of quickly. I also planted the Kennebec in my metal raised bed versus in pots and grow bags. And like I said, they did amazing. I only had one harvest of Kennebec. I put all of those potatoes in one spot and I harvested all of those potatoes one time. One time. I only had one nice Kennebec harvest and it was over 8 pounds. So Kennebec, we will keep in the rotation for this upcoming year. Now, I grew 2 different types of red potatoes. Red potato, a red Pontiac, and I grew a Sangre. One is a mid-season, I believe, and one is late season. Here are the pictures of both of those potatoes. I purchased 2.5 pounds, so you're seeing the theme here. Everything was 2.5 pounds. And for the Sangre, I produced a little over 7.5 pounds, and the Pontiac was only 6.8 pounds. So the Pontiac actually didn't do well at all for me this year. The potatoes I harvested were nice sized potatoes. They looked good. There just weren't many of them. And for the Sangre, I had them do really well, I think, in one container. The other container kind of flopped on me. So the Sangre, even though I got over 7.5 pounds of potatoes, I wasn't happy with either one of those red potatoes in this current season. So the plan is to find a different red potato for this upcoming season. We are going to put these on the shelf and we're going to find something else. The other issue I had with the Pontiac potatoes were that they came up very quickly. The storage life was not good on them. And so I am using them as seed potatoes right now for my indoor grow space, but I don't plan on purchasing any more of these in the future, but I will keep using them to keep that potato harvest going all season long. I'm sure there'll be some in the garden next year, but it won't be because I purchased any more. Lehigh has been my favorite potato over the last 2 seasons. And it's, here's a picture of the Lehigh. And it's more of a round potato. The size usually is pretty good on the Lehigh as well. And I know I used it in some of my potatoes from last year, that kind of stuff. They had an excellent storage life on them. But once I get to the end of the season and I've started bunching all the potatoes together, I don't know if it's a Lehigh or something else, but I know I've been using them to keep that harvest going. Purchased 2.5 pounds of the Lehigh seed potatoes, and I was able to harvest let's just say right at 7 pounds. So I expected a little more out of the Lehigh this year, and it just wasn't there. Since the Kennebec kind of surprised me, I'm going to put Kennebec in the rotation, and we're going to move Lehigh out of that rotation. And the Kennebec, or the Lehigh, does have a great storage life, but the potatoes weren't as uniform as the Kennebec. And so we're going to put the Kennebec in. We're taking the Lehigh out. Next, I talked about the potatoes that I got from an Amish farm. And I got about 2 pounds, and it's called Eva. And I purchased 2 pounds of potatoes, and I was able to grow 7.6 pounds from those 2 pounds of potatoes. They were big, round potatoes. They looked amazing. If I can find a picture, here's a picture of the Eva, if I can find one. And I've been wanting to grow Eva for a few years, so to be able to put my hands on a couple seed potatoes to play with them this year was quite fun. Eva was a nice potato to play with, but it is not my breadwinner. We will not purchase any more for this upcoming season. Of course, I'll keep them in the rotation if I can, from the recycling and making it more sustainable. But I don't plan on purchasing any unless I head up to that Amish farmer again and I pick up a potato or two here or there just to play with, but it will not be one of my main crops for this upcoming season. Now, I've given German Butterball 2 seasons now, 2 seasons. I love the flavor of the German Butterball. I love the color, the texture, the taste. Everything about the German Butterball is great, except for the potatoes are too small for me. I ordered for the second year in a row 2.5 pounds of German Butterball, and I got a decent harvest. I got over, 9.25 pounds of German Butterball potatoes. But to get 9 pounds of potatoes, y'all, there were so many of these little bitty potatoes that if I needed to peel, it's a lot of work to have to peel these teeny little potatoes. They also did, I believe, very well when I canned them. So they have a beautiful color, a beautiful taste when I can them and make meals in a jar and all that kind of stuff. But y'all, they just too small. So I'm sure they'll stay in the rotation because I have 5,000 of them. But I don't plan to buy German Butterball this upcoming season. The next 2 potatoes I'm going to talk about were really just for fun. So when I put in my second order at the main potato lady, I put these in just to play around a little bit with. One of them never had heard of before, and that's called Masquerade. Here's a picture of the Masquerade. Masquerade did very poorly in my garden. I'll just be honest with you. I ordered 2.5 pounds of Masquerade, and I only got 4 pounds out of it, 4.17 pounds. They did horrible. They had a great taste. They're super dense. So as I was trying to peel the Masquerade potatoes, they were very difficult to peel because they were just that dense of a potato. Beautiful yellow flesh, but the return on my investment wasn't where it needed to be. We will not play around with Masquerade in the future, but it was a fun experiment for this year. And the other new one that I played with was Nicola. And here's a picture of that one. And I've seen some of my European YouTubers grow this one, and it had a beautiful, just uniform size, the texture, the way you can use it for potato salads and mashing and roasting and all that kind of stuff was amazing. So I said, let's give Nicola a try. I purchased 2.5 pounds, and I grew 8.5 pounds of potatoes. And 6 of those came from a metal raised bed that was only 11 inches deep. So I knew they grew very, very well in my metal raised beds, but they didn't do so well in my grow bags and in my plastic pots. So we will keep that one in the rotation so we can play with it again. I was super happy with getting 6 pounds of potatoes, and I only put 4 or 5 of them in that metal raised bed and was able to get over 6 pounds out of it. So that was more than a pound per seed potato. And that's it for all of the potatoes that I purchased. But I told you that I would keep reusing the harvest that I had from years past. And so I grew a total of 17 pounds from my harvest that from the years previous, right? The prior years where they start coming up, they get eyes on them, and I replant them. And so I did that this year, and I've been able to harvest a total of 17 pounds of potatoes from what I call free, right? Just keeping that harvest coming. I didn't purchase, I just harvest, I just planted from my current stock and started reusing them. So I know I missed some potatoes here and there with giving them away to family and friends and that kind of stuff. So with those that I missed, we would add that to that total of 122 pounds of potatoes. But I think we got an idea of how those potatoes did. So as I think about this upcoming year and what potatoes I plan to grow. So for the potatoes for next year, the ones I plan to buy, and I'm buying fewer potatoes this upcoming year. So I purchased 32 pounds of seed potatoes last year. And this upcoming year, I think I'm only going to purchase 20 pounds of potatoes. So we're reducing that purchase by roughly 10 pounds. So for the early potatoes this upcoming year, I'm going to purchase Yukon Gold. We're going to put Yukon Gem on the shelf. We're going to do Yukon Gold, and I'm only going to do 2.5 pounds of Yukon Gold. For my red potato, I want to have a good storage life on it. We may do Desiree or we may do Chieftain. So Desiree and Chieftain, here are the pictures. Help me decide. Do I get both or do I only get one? Help me decide on which of these two to get. The Chieftain potato is a early to mid-season potato with good storage. The Desiree is a late season potato with good storage. So I might do both. Since one's early to mid and one's late, that'll keep that red potato harvest going. So then we get to the mid-season potatoes. Purple Viking, y'all. We're doing Purple Viking. We've already talked about it. Purple Viking is a done deal. And I'm going to get 5 pounds of Purple Viking this year. I'm going to double up on Purple Viking. It's my favorite potato. And so I need larger harvest of the Purple Viking. It has high yields and excellent, and I do mean excellent storage. And you can use it for baking. You can use it for mashing. I use it for everything. And another mid-season one is the Kennebec. We already said we're putting it back on the table. So Kennebec, let me read to you about Kennebec though, just to kind of give you an idea. Kennebec has a buffed skin, white flesh. It's a high yielding potato. It's excellent and it's all purpose. I can bake it. I can mash it. I can roast it. I can fry it. I can do so much with it. Another mid-season, and I usually try to do too early, too mid, too late, but it looks like I'm going to have more mid-season potatoes this year, is the Nicola. Nicola, I'm getting 2.5 pounds of that one. So 3 mid-season potatoes, 2 early potatoes. I've always wanted something in the late potato area, and that's where my Lehigh was, and that's where my red Pontiac was. Since I'm not growing those two this year, y'all, I'm going to do another russet. I'm going to give russet one more try. I got to the last harvest this year, and I got some of the biggest russets I've ever seen. We are going to do a panella. Here's a picture of it right here. It stores well. And it should give me more uniform, deep, russet skin, perfect for baking potatoes. And I miss those baking potatoes. But if I got all the potatoes that I have, I'm not going to buy a baking potato when I have the number of potatoes I have here. So I am going to try russets one more time. So I'm debating, do I go all the way up to 5 pounds so I can make sure I have plenty, because it's a late season potato, which means I'm only going to get one harvest. I won't have time to get a second batch in. Too early, too late, and 3 mid-season potatoes. That's the plan for now. By having so many early and mid-season potatoes, I can easily get a first harvest in, get those out, and plant a second harvest. So I think that will help keep the harvest coming. I believe I can get just as many potatoes next year with purchasing fewer potatoes this year, because I am starting to get more sustainable where I'm producing my own stock of seed potatoes. So that's the plan for next year. I hope this potato update helped you out so you can see how the season went, which potatoes did well, which ones we'll put in next year, and which ones we're going to call it quits, or either we're going to just put it on the shelf for a season. I will also give you an update on the rest of the garden in a separate video in the very near future. If you plan on ordering your potatoes for next year, the main potato lady is already taking next year's seed orders. And if you put your order in now, you can request your seed potatoes before the end of March. And that way you can get 2 harvests like I do. And I'm a northern gardener. I'm in zone 6B, and I'm still getting 2 harvests a year. I get a spring harvest and a fall harvest. And Maine Potato Lady is the company I'm going with for this upcoming season. If you have any questions, please put it in the comments, send me an email. I like answering any and all questions that you may have. So until next time, and I hope there will be a next time that you hang out with me, Kim, at Kim's Cozy Corner. Bye.